It's some 32 minutes after 6. It's now time to get into the papers and let you know the stories that are trending. And joining me for our news review this morning is Dr. Asa Asante, who is a lecturer at the University of Ghana. Thank you for joining me this morning, sir. Let me bring you what is on the front pages and then we can zoom into the specifics later. So on the front page of the Daily Graphic, we have a strike paralyzes public schools. Government urges unions to restore services. It comes along with a photograph of some pupils of the St. Charles Primary School in Bolgatanga in the Upper East region, about to ride their bicycles back home due to the strike. Also on the front page of the Daily Graphic, former toll workers petition president over lost jobs. Remember, we brought you that story some 2 weeks ago where the toll workers, some of them who are persons with disabilities, were appealing to the president to fulfill the promise of reassigning them. And this very interesting one, Ghanaian leads UK team on brain disorder breakthrough. That's really exciting. Professor Eric Abuaji there, when you hear of Ghanaians doing wonderful things in other parts of the world. And that one on the back page that we brought to you during the AM News, President cut sword for Mansu-Huni Valley Railway. And Stratcom Africa launches 10th Garden Flower Show, calls on stakeholders to leverage flowers for wealth. On the front page of The Finder, non-traditional exports rake in $3.33 billion in 2021, and sword cut for that railway line that we just saw on the back page of Graphic. Teacher strike, GES to meet unions. Okay, this is on page 9. If you joined the show yesterday, remember we were told that that meeting was supposed to happen yesterday. We need to get an update on that. If this morning the Finder is still capturing it to mean they are to meet the unions. And malicious accusations against John Boydoo are false, and that's according to the campaign team. Front page of the Ghanaian publisher also has that John Boydoo dismisses spurious allegations and non-traditional export earnings up 17%. Opuni trial, no farmer drank Lithovit fertilizer. And Ghana IMF negotiation begins today. That's a big one. Gabi explains Ghana's decision. And NLA rubbishes impropriety, job losses claim. Daily Guide, IMF decision returns investor confidence. That'll be an interesting one to delve into. And Anna cut sword for €500 million rail line warns thieves. Ato Forson's trial adjourned to July 21 and bring back toll booths, a section of the toll workers who visited Parliament. And that one on Jacqueline Mensah. If you're a lover of TikTok, this is a lady you should know. Fire has gutted her home, unfortunately, and oh, sorry about that. But she was expressing gratitude to God for saving her life. The story continues on page 8. On the back page of the Daily Guide, don't fire Samuel Boydoo, TT Brothers caution. Samuel Boydoo is the coach of the team I love, Accra Hearts of Oak. And PSG sack Pochettino. Sierra Leone FA probe 91-195-0 score lines. That's very interesting. Isn't it outrageous? 91. Front page of the Ghanaian Times. That one on the teacher strike. GES invites school heads over teacher strike. And Accra residents fume over persistent floods after early morning downpour. Opokwa Mankwa GES boss. Okay, I think there's a bit of a, there's a mistake on that one. And also the story on the Mansu-Huni Valley Railway is captured. Republic, Tarzan joins IMF chat. Drop Oforiatta from government delegation. We also heard that on the news earlier, where Isaac Adongo was calling for same. Ghanaian gold sellers, suppliers enraged over Dubai-based dynamic FZC ploy to swindle trade and logistics company. Nurses and midwives demand cost of living allowance. And today, quite a lot of papers this morning. Let me just go to Dr. Asah-Asante. We have him now via Zoom. Good morning, Doc. Thanks for joining the program. Let me take your thoughts on the teacher strike first. Now we have nurses and midwives also demanding a cost of living allowance. We know Ghana is starting negotiations with the IMF today. Clearly, some have said an admission by government that the times are not favorable when we talk in terms of the economy. And there are those who have petitioned or urged the teachers and other worker unions to just hold on and allow government to recover from what we are seeing now. What are your quick thoughts on that?
Yeah, good morning. I think it's a difficult time. We are in difficult times, and we have to acknowledge that that is the reality. That is a difficult and a worrying situation because when you look at the nurses and the doctors and all that, yeah, if they've worked, they need to get their due. So even though we are in difficult times, it needs to be handled very well so that it doesn't create unnecessary problem. But they also deserve their fair share of the national cake.
Now let's talk about the IMF bailout. We know negotiations are starting today. There are those who've criticized government and said, look, you should have gone in for this earlier. There was no need dragging your feet and trying to get the e-levy and all that. And there are those who are saying, you know what? We don't think the finance minister is up to task. You should let him go. In fact, there are those who have even questioned why there hasn't been any reshuffle. How do you think all these things come to play as we talk about the performance of this particular government when it comes to the economy?
It's a difficult one. If you look at what has brought us this far, then you cannot fault those who are asking for the finance minister to be sacked, that they have a legitimate point. Because, look, you cannot manage economy and then you know that, yes, we are not, we are not getting the right responses and that things are difficult. That the earlier you abandon your previous position and then move on to another. We didn't get this. We didn't get this. And this is how far we have come. In governance, there's always the need to ensure that those who are non-performing, you get them out so that you can maintain the system. All right. Sometimes we introduce those new persons to bring in energy. Sometimes we reshuffle to take them to a position where they can also go and inject some. See all of this. But my dear sister, there are a number of things apart from what I've said that have brought us to this far. If you look at the economy, all right, there are a lot that we did not do right. If you look at waste in the system, we did not manage them well. If you look at waste from state-owned enterprises, from report that we read from Auditor General, if you look at corruption and all that, it is one thing that has contributed to where we are now. Come to look at also the situation where government was engaging in unnecessary expenditure. Look at the cathedral program. I mean, it is a good project, but is that what we need now? And all these things, we throw money in. And then we do not get honest leadership, because people saw that there were difficult times. People saw that there was something wrong, basically wrong with the economy. But the government did not come clean on this. We were all giving stories that all will be well, and here we are. But I believe that as we are preparing for IMF, we have no choice than to be disciplined, because one of the things that has also brought us this far is indiscipline. And IMF will not sit down for you to be indisciplined whilst they give you resources, and this will whip us to line. I think going forward, we should have people that we believe that they can manage the economy. I have thought over the years that, is it the case that we have those who have what it takes to manage the economy? I've not been able to have answers to some of these questions, because the slightest problem we have will run, and when they come in, they are able to stabilize the system. And if you ask yourself that, is it the case that we know what to do or we don't?
Hello, Doc, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
I can hear you.
Or is it the case that we are trading sound economic decisions to meet or fulfill the very, sometimes, unrealistic promises we make during campaigns?
Yes, it is one of the issues that which has also contributed to this problem. Sometimes we make a lot of promises, and those promises we try, and we know that they are not viable, but we make them and then pump money into such projects which are nothing but to satisfy certain political ends and not necessarily providing for the state. It is one of the factors that has also worked against us.
Doc, I mean, as a political scientist, if a government came to you and said, we made these promises prior to our election into government, now we are here and we realize that it's not what we thought it to be, and the projections we made may not be the case due to what we realize is existing, especially in terms of the financial muscle to fulfill those promises. How do governments go about communicating some of these shocks and surprises once they assume power? How do they handle them? Because then the people voted for you based on the promises, but you get in there and you realize that you're not able to fulfill the promise. It's quite a dicey situation. How do you handle that political communication?
You see, you need to be honest. It doesn't matter how difficult the situation is. You did not anticipate something, and all of a sudden, here you are. You have something on your hands that you cannot handle. You need to admit and then tell the people who gave you mandate that this is how far you have come. That is better.
Hello, Doc.
We need to make promises that program we want to do. We must think through it properly and see whether it is feasible before you commit money into it. Otherwise, we are going to have such situations all the time, and that.
Well, it appears we have a challenge with that line to Dr. Asante. Hello, Doc, can you hear me? Your feed froze. All right, too bad. We're trying to reconnect. I was just about to ask him on the back of promises, take his thoughts on the workers of the toll booths who were promised reassignment. We know that hasn't happened yet. And even the whole confusion about the toll booths, scrapping it, going for the e-levy, saying that it was going to help us, economically. Now we are taking a U-turn, going to the IMF and still saying that, well, we are not going to scrap the e-levy because it will support the general economic well-being and all that. I was just going to take Doc's quick thoughts on that. But there were a couple of papers I was yet to focus on before he came in. So let me just do that quickly. The front page of the Daily Statesman, Ghana export earnings up 17%, captured in other papers. Osafo Mafo apologizes for ethnocentric comments, and details of that story is captured on page 4. Ghana's Eurobonds extend gains. NLAD Bank's claims of over 2 million job losses and steady progress in real sector. That's according to President Akufo-Addo. But let me just bring you a bit of that one on Osafo for apologizing for ethnocentric comments on page 4. And the story is by Bright Philip Donko, and the senior presidential advisor Osafo has admitted guilt for passing an ethnocentric comment that purportedly painted Asantes in bad light. His apology was contained in a press statement dated July 1. It followed the leakage of excerpt of a conversation he had with his colleagues relating to the roles of various ethnic groups in the pre-independence struggle. The senior presidential advisor, in a video circulated on social media, was heard saying that the struggle for independence was led by the Achims and that the Asantes were not involved. The public has responded, however, in an angry manner to the comment on social media. And he said the comment was never intended to stir up ethnic tensions between Achims and Asantes, adding that the ethnic tension is not a thing I want for our country or the NPP. On the same page of the Daily Statesman, Kwache therefore lauds Akufo-Addo's bold decision on IMF. And the last one, the custodian. Ghana Eurobonds extend gains. Details on page 3. And that one on the NLA and Ghana earning some $3.33 billion from non-traditional exports is captured. Do we have Dr. Asah-Asante back? Well, we seem to have a challenge with that particular one there. But let me bring you some more details on that story on the president cutting short for work to begin on the Manso-Honi Valley Railway. It's on page 16 of the Ghanaian Times. That story is captured in different papers, but I'll bring you details of that one. Okay, let me hold on. I'm told Dr. Asah-Asante is back. Doc, thank you for reconnecting. So just before you went, I was talking about our decision as a country to scrap the road tolls. That led to some job losses. And these persons who were manning our toll booths, many of whom were, or are persons with disabilities, were promised reassignment. That hasn't happened. And we all know the back and forth with even the toll booth and Parliament not approving before the decision was taken and enforcement and all that. Now, we brought in the e-levy. And we were told that this was going to help us resolve our economic issues. And then later we heard, well, the e-levy didn't accrue as much as we thought it would, so we are going to the IMF. Government says, despite its decision to go to the IMF, it will not scrap the e-levy. There are those who say this whole process of trying to salvage the economy was not well thought through. Hello, Doc? Well, I'm told that we are having some challenges on that line. Too bad. It would have been good to hear what Doc had to say as a political scientist as well. Also because this is largely political decisions affecting the economy and all that, keeping promises, ensuring that jobs are maintained and all that. Let me go back to that one on the front page of the Ghanaian Times. Let me just pull that out now. On the president cutting short for the Manso-Honi Valley Railway work to begin. And President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo yesterday cut short for the commencement of work on the construction of a 500 million euro Manso-Honi Valley section of the Western Railway. He described it as the highest single investment for rail development since Ghana gained independence. And we know that this government has had an ambitious agenda to revamp our rail sector. Later on the show, we'll be bringing you our Joy News Tracker, the latest edition, which focuses on the rail sector and, you know, all the efforts government has put in and why we have not seen the rail lines, you know, working as we thought they would, considering government's plan and agenda at the time. These rail lines development had started. Well, thankfully, the lines will help us. I hope they do this time. We have Dr. Asah back. Hello, Doc, if you can hear me. So there's a story captured on some of the front pages of the papers had to do with toll booth workers, persons with disabilities who were promised reassignment after government decided to scrap the road tolls. We went in for the e-levy, it didn't work. We've gone to the IMF, it didn't work. There are those who say that, look, this whole thing of trying to salvage the economy was not well thought through. People have lost their jobs. Now, the e-levy is not even bringing in much. You're going to the IMF. Now you say you won't scrap the e-levy. Do you agree with such persons?
Government is taking such posture because if you look at the genesis of all this, when we started with the conversation around e-levy, there were scholars and experts who said that 1% was enough for Ghanaians to show that government did not listen at all. And look at it, government thought that making it 1.5, they would be able to rake in the needed revenue. One would have thought that if they had listened to the expert and place it at 1%, I think the story would have been different. If you look at the decision to, discontinue the revenue generated from the toll booths, it is so surprising that that decision was taken because, look, it doesn't matter how even small or meager that resource is. We are able to generate a little that at least if we have kept the process in place, we'll be able to gain some little amount and add it to what we have. And from where scrap, it's very unfortunate. It throws light on the capacity of this.
Hello, Doc. Too bad this morning we are struggling to have a stable connection with you. Hopefully we'll be able to raise you another time to hear your thoughts on the major issues in the newspapers. That's the political scientist and director for the Center for European Studies, Dr. Kwame Asah, who was just sharing his thoughts on the e-levy and government's decision not to withdraw it despite going to the IMF. So later this morning, we would be having a conversation on the IMF because we know negotiations will start today. Also for our Joy Business, AM Business Edition today, we'll also be focusing on the IMF. So do stay with us. And on that one, involving school children, is day 2 of the teachers' strike. They are demanding a cost of living allowance from government. We're yet to hear if government will be able to meet it at all. What government's position is on the matter. We are told that some negotiations started prior to the strike. The National Labour Commission has directed that negotiations continue and has given a 7-day ultimatum for which the Minister of Education, Director of GES, Minister of Employment and others must get back to the NLC on what they've been able to negotiate with the teachers. Also, midwives and nurses are asking for a cost of living allowance, and so it doesn't get any easier on government. We hope to get a response from government on this as well. And also later in the show, we'll bring you that conversation on terrorism. I saw one story on one of the papers talking about that. Let me just go for that, just to set a bit of a tone later for that conversation my colleague had with Brigadier Nunu Mensah, retired. So 17 terrorist attacks recorded in West Africa in June 2022, and that from National Security Minister Albert Kandapar. And this story is from The Republic. It's on page 11. Let me just bring you details to set the tone for that conversation, which we'll bring later. Albert Kandapar, Minister of National Security, says the West African sub-region experienced 17 terrorist attacks as of June 28, 2022. He said the attacks resulted in 574 deaths with so many injuries. In April, the sub-region of West Africa witnessed attacks, incidents, and 315 people died. We felt that was too much, but in May, there were only 42 incidents, 5 less than in April, but 465 people died. The trend has not changed, he added. The minister said this at the opening ceremony of the first senior-level regional course for the prevention of violent extremism for West Africa in Accra. The four-day event is jointly organized by the African Union's specialized institution, Africa Center for the Study and Research of Terrorism, and partnered by the Federal Department of Foreign Affairs of Switzerland. It is being supported by the Human Security Research Center here in Ghana. We know there were some alerts issued earlier this year about Ghana being a target, and everybody was told to be alert. If you see something, say something. The story is still the same, so just be vigilant. Keep your eyes on the ground. If you observe anybody acting strangely, just reach out to the nearest security official. If it's a police officer by the road, or if it's a police post close to you, just alert them and let the law take its course. Here on the AM show, right about now, we'll be just breaking for sports, and Mukhtar Nabila will bring you that. Do stay.